Hi, I'm Arvind Singhal, and I welcome you to Just Legends, a series that profiles legendary individuals whose work has inspired the creation of a more just and humane world. Today, we profile the work of nurse leader Linda Rusch, who helped create a legendary culture of patient care at Hunterdon Medical Center in New Jersey. I first met Linda Rusch in 2005 when I had become interested in complexity science approaches to organizational and social change. Linda is just inspirational, motivational, anchored person. At Hunterdon Medical Center, the aura that surrounds Linda is an aura no less than of Florence Nightingale. Here is a tribute to Linda through conversations with the nursing staff at Hunterdon Medical Center. Incidentally, this was taped a day after Linda officially retired from Hunterdon Medical Center.
It's Hunterdon. It's what we do. You know, it's who we are. She was pretty sick, and her husband was well. He was not. He was the caretaker, and she was admitted to the surgical unit. And her husband was at home, and he had a heart attack and passed away. And they were married for 67 years. And love of each other's lives, and of course she was devastated, by the unexpected death of her husband. The children, there was a son and a daughter, and of course they too had always been focusing on mother's illness, and were very unexpected. It was unexpected that their father had died suddenly. They needed to make funeral arrangements, viewing and final funeral arrangements, and they wanted their mother, to attend. This is the love of her life, her husband of 67 years, and the patient, really needed to go, needed to, put some closure, see him. She wasn't able to see him because he went home. She was admitted to the hospital. There was no closure. There's rules and regulations to all of these things, and insurance providers have. If you're well enough to leave the hospital, then you're not sick enough to be in the hospital. Imagine that one. Yeah. So we have people that they're doing their job, to make sure that we get reimbursed properly and that rules are followed. And no disrespect to them, the patient care management said, no, you cannot attend. Yeah. Well, of course, this caused a huge upheaval, and the family, the son and daughter, were arguing with the patient care manager. My mother needs to do this. You can't. There's no way. And this argument instilled, and I then was called to the room because the nurse director. And when there's a patient that's upset on my floor, it's my business. So I went in and tried to mediate the situation with the family and the patient care managers, the rule people, the insurance, and listen to them all go back and forth, and why you can and why you can't and why I have to. Prior to that, I did go in and speak to the patient, and she said to me, I know that I'm sick. I know that I'm not well. I know it's going to be difficult for me to make this trip there. It would have to be via ambulance, in a stretcher, and it's going to take a lot out of me, and there might be ill effects from me attending. I need to do this. She sobbed. This is my husband, my life of 67 years. Yeah. So I'm at this meeting, and that is in the back of my head, and I'm listening to everybody give their reasons why she can't go and why she has to go. Yeah. And then it just occurred to me. I said, well, I don't understand, why can't we have the funeral here? And everyone stopped and looked, and the family was, that's a wonderful idea, and the insurance people, the people that are the ones that are the rule followers, well, we can't do that. You can't. And I said, well, why not? I said, I don't understand. We have, dead bodies here. People die in the hospital. I mean, what's the difference? I mean, we don't usually bring them in, I said, to me, I was perplexed that they would be so shocked that, why it would be, it's got to be some violation of something. Some sort of regulation. I said, well, I don't know of any, and even if it is, we need to do the right thing. And I said, let me, talk to my VP. So I went to Linda, and then we went to, Mr. Wise, the CEO of the hospital, and explained the situation. And in the way that only Hunterdon would always react, we do the right thing. And we said, you know what, maybe it is some violation of some health, but if you do something for the right reason, then the repercussions that might come with it, it's worth it. Yeah. So the hospital was totally supportive of it, with the understanding that I would be there to orchestrate it, because it was, a sensitive issue. A hearse pulling up to the front of the hospital would not work. So, we had to, and we needed to do it with dignity and in an environment that, would work for the family as well. So we have a chapel here. And we did it on a Saturday morning, which is less busy, before visiting hours. And, we went through the back entrance of the hospital, so a hearse wouldn't pull up with a, body coming, and people would be like, what's going on? We worked with security and roped off the area, and, had the priest come and work with the funeral parlor, and we've never done it before, but all right, we're bringing a body, we usually pick them up,
Right.
And we brought the patient down in her bed.
Yeah.
And the bed was rolled up right next to the coffin.
Wow.
And she was able to, it was so beautiful, I have to tell you. It was very moving, and she was able to see her husband and pay respect, and the family was able to have a small ceremony together. And just phenomenal. And to this day, I still am in touch with the son and the daughter, and they're forever grateful to the hospital. And it was one of those things that you'll always have in your heart.
Yeah.
But it's Hunterdon. It's what we do. It's who we are.
Yeah.
And I'm just blessed that I have the support of leadership, the management here, the administration to say it's the right thing, so do it. Of course, go right ahead. That it's the right thing to do. People will ask me, they speak of it on orientation to the hospital.
Yes.
And if someone will see me, they'll say, "Oh, you're the funeral lady."
Yeah.
And there was a woman who was dying, and she was from England. And she had no relatives here in this country, and her wish was to at least speak with her relatives in England before she died, as opposed to having them all come over because there were families. And so it was made possible through the switchboard that she was able to have contact with her relatives, and she felt very satisfied after she was able to do that. And the other wish that she had was that she did not die alone.
Yeah.
And the manager on the unit at the time, the director, when death became imminent, laid down next to her on the bed and put her arms around her. And soon another nurse, the director's assistant, saw this and said, let me relieve you. You have things to do. And gradually, the nurses on the unit took turns relieving each other, holding this woman. And she did pass away during that night, as the nurses on the unit all took turns holding her in their arms, and she did pass away in the arms of one of the nurses. So she wasn't alone. She was able to have her very last wish fulfilled.
When we had this woman a few years back named Patty who lived on our floor for over a year.
Yeah.
And she was like developmentally delayed a little bit. I think she was in her 40s, and she lived with her parents. And she was a long-term dialysis patient, so we just had trouble placing her, and she ended up just living on our floor until we could find somewhere for her to go. So, but she was a difficult patient. Like, she would get, just because of her mental capacity, she would get angry sometimes, she would throw things. She had a lot of stuffed animals that she slept with in her bed. But the staff really, like, she grew on us so much, because she was like, you know, our little patient who's taking care of Patty today. And we just had to be so creative of how we could take care of her, because you know, we didn't want to put her in restraints. We didn't want to do any of that. The other thing was she was in isolation, so the poor thing was stuck in her room for literally a year. So we were just really creative with things. You know, we would send her to physical therapy even though she didn't need it, so she could get out of her room. Things like that. I love it. We tried to like give her things to do so she would, you know, feel like she was useful. And so even though we knew we couldn't reuse the towels that she was folding, we would have her do things like that. You know, Patty, we need some towels folded. You know. And just things like that you normally wouldn't, like, you know that they're going to have to be washed again because she's in an isolation room, but just being able to make her feel like needed and loved. And then before, and you know, we celebrated everything with her. You know, it's Patty's birthday's coming up next week. Who's going to decorate her room? And then before she left, like, all the nurses formed, you know, in the hallway. We stood up against the walls, and as she was leaving in her wheelchair, oh, bye, Patty, and just had a little, you know, going away party per se for her. So it was bittersweet, but it was a really just a neat experience. So
We had a young gentleman on our floor who had a cardiomyopathy, and he had an ejection fraction of 5% due to alcoholism. So his
and for a layperson, that means
for a lay person means his heart, he either needed a new heart or some equipment to get it to pump more effectively.
Got it.
So he knew he had to make some life changes, and he and I developed a relationship on the floor, and he pretty much lived on our floor for about a month. And while he was on the floor, he knew he had to make some life changes, which he said, okay, that's it on the alcoholism. What's the plan? So he was either going to go to Morristown, another big facility, for either a heart transplant or a device to help his heart pump more efficiently. But meanwhile, he stayed here at Hunterdon because there was insurance issues. He had to file for, he had no insurance, he lived in Newark, big social issues. Anyway, he was on our floor doing all the filing process of the paperwork. And every morning he would come into our pantry for coffee. So he and I developed a coffee clutch. So every morning we met for coffee and pretended we weren't in the hospital.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, to make a long story short, we met every day. He loved it. He got discharged to Morristown. After his paperwork came through, discharged to Morristown. Got on LVAD. Comes back every week to see me. How much it meant for the coffee.
Thank you.
And we had stories. We would pretend that we weren't in the hospital. So we'd say, so who'd you talk to in the coffee shop? Who's here today?
Wow.
Every morning. And he comes into the hospital to this day with his LVAD every week, brings me a coffee, tells me how he's doing. He was just in last Tuesday, coming in for blood work. He's like a whole new person. And it was because of her coffee. He says, you have no idea how much your coffee meant. Some time years ago, there was a patient who was on the surgical unit for a long time because of her trauma, and she had fallen off her horse
Oh, yeah.
and she really missed that horse terribly. Horses are large, sociable animals, and
Yeah.
I'm sure the horse was missing her as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the patient's room at that time, the wall was mostly windows, and they trailered the horse and brought the horse out onto the lawn so that the patient could see the horse through the window. Actually, could call to the horse because the windows opened. And when horses hear their favorite person call, they whinny back. And
Yeah. Oh.
that's kind of happy.
A woman who was had COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease,
Yeah.
and she was end stage, and she was opting not to go to the ventilator and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She knew that
Right, it was
she
coming.
was pretty much at the
Yeah.
end of her road, and she had said to her nurse that, I'm used to having a cocktail every evening, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing I really miss is having a cocktail. I have a martini every
Oh, yeah, a little scotch. Yeah.
She would have a martini every afternoon.
Oh,
she said,
good
she
for
goes,
her.
I know that I'm not doing well, and I know that I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna make it. But I really would like a martini. And so we actually we made all the arrangements, and then her nurse actually was the same nurse who threw the Valentine's Day party for
I
me,
see,
just the
okay.
patient. She got martini glasses, and she got the mixings for a martini, and she had the family come in, and the family sat with them, and they had martinis, and she got her wish. She had her martini, she had her family, and so yeah, we try to do things like that out of the box,
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's in the scheme of things, it's a little thing, just to
Yeah, yeah.
just to give somebody a little bit of happiness at that moment.
It's a little big thing.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Had a patient recently transferred to Morristown for a valve replacement, and he really couldn't eat or drink that many things, and I gave him a pretend martini before he left. He was so stressed out. I gave him ginger ale, and I said, cheers, let's cheers together. And I said, you're going to do great. You really are.
Yeah.
You're in a good place. You're going to do well.
Yeah.
And so we celebrated our pretend martini.
It's a theme going on.
There is, yeah, there is.
With the martinis here.
Yeah, yeah.
Not only that, but medicine cups, our little medicine cups that we give things in.
Shot glasses.
Sometimes I'll pretend too. I'll put apple juice in it, and I'll say, "What would you like?" And they're like, "Oh, I would just love a 7 and 7." And I'm like, "Well, I have a shot of Jack Daniels right here. Would that be okay?" And they're like, "Sure." I pour a little apple juice in, and I'm like, "Cheers."
So yeah, we try to do things like that out of the box, because it's a little thing.
It's a little big thing.
Why there are so many stories like this here? I mean, I think it's unusual.
I think it's the environment.
Yeah.